put their wisdom into practice as you build your company's success.
All right, welcome to another episode of the SuperPro Podcast, the heartbeat of home service excellence. I'm Roland Ligtenberg, your host, co-founder of Housecall Pro, and I'm an advocate for all the hardworking pros out there that help make our homes better, safer, and more comfortable. Through Housecall Pro, I've had the privilege of supporting hundreds of thousands of pros just like you, empowering you guys to achieve more, stress less, and redefine success in our industry. Today, I'm super excited. I've got Joshua on here. He's the president of BDK Door Company out in the West Chicago suburbs, really the Chicago suburbs. He's got 10 trucks out there with 22 employees looking to hit $6 million in revenue this year. So he's probably got a ton of knowledge, a ton of wisdom, a lot of tips and tricks. And I'm just really grateful to have him on the show. So join us as we dive into Joshua's path. And we're going to talk a little bit about his company and Housecall Pro. Welcome to the show.
Hey man, what's up?
So tell me, a decade. You've been in a decade now. What was the point in time when you guys were like, okay, this is when the company started? What's the genesis story of BDK?
Yeah, so personally, I've got like 20 years of experience in garage door industry. I worked for my dad. He owned a company doing garage doors. I worked for him for 10 years. I had 4 brothers. 3 of them were working there with me, so you can imagine how like smooth and awesome that was. Being the younger brother. I'd set up jobs, it'd get pushed, I'd like throw a fit, and then they'd like give me a noogie and like say, good job, champ. So finally one day I was like, I'm going to make a point. I quit, I go home, and I don't hear from anyone for like 3 days. And I'm like, oh crap, I might've made a mistake. So nobody came after me. At that point I knew I needed to go like get a job. So fortunately got a sales and administrative position with another door company. Was subcontracting for another guy on the weekends. The owner of that company, which is BDK Door, basically said he's looking to retire. I asked if I was interested in purchasing the company, and he basically walked me through a nice seller finance transition. Mm-hmm. One of the best things that's ever happened for me, and I'm very grateful for him sharing what he knew and guiding me through that. Because as much as I learned from my dad's company, I learned how to work hard. I never learned how to manage or organize or account. Mm-hmm. And that was what Brad really helped me do. So 10 years ago,
go ahead.
10 years ago, that's when, we signed our agreement. And when I bought the company, we were just over 900,000 in revenue. And this last year we did 4.8 million. And this year we're, budgeted for 5.8.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's like not just a turnaround. That's a great growth story. And I feel like, the golden nugget you just dropped there is there's always something to learn from different people. I learned a lot from my dad. I also learned a lot what to do and what not to do. And then I just learned a lot from a lot of other folks. So sometimes it's great to have that extra perspective, especially before you jump into, really owning and operating just a business in general. You've hired, and fired, I'm sure, probably a good amount of people. What's your strategy for finding good people to work at your company? How do you find them? How do you source them? And how do you vet them?
So finding them, I'm going to say I was really, fortunate in the beginning. Like my first 2 hires, these guys came in, they had experience, and I was just super fortunate and lucky that they were hardworking, honest, good people. Mm-hmm. That actually, I didn't realize how fortunate I was, until probably 6-7 years later. Because if you get lucky the first 2 times, you know how it is like in business, you think you're the golden child. And then all of a sudden I start having trouble finding people. And it's like, man,
what happened?
Was I just lucky?
Yeah.
So I was lucky. But what I've learned from that is like good people know and hang out with other good people. Good people usually have a pretty good sense of identifying BS in other people. So I use my team. I'll often get my team in on a second interview to see if they're getting the same vibe. The past 2 years, as we've kind of accelerated with growing the team, we've changed and say now we bring everybody in for a shop tour. That gives us a chance to talk to them. After 20 minutes, the guard comes down, everybody relaxes, and you can kind of start getting to the answers a little faster and a little more honestly. So, and for me, I used to always be afraid of people asking more money or more pay. And now that was probably a big turning point is like, when somebody asks for more now, it's my opportunity to say, good. Here's what I need in exchange.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates more value for the company. So
it's a good tip. I think whenever someone asks for a raise, being able to be like, yeah, sure. Like, here's what it takes. Like, let me show you how you can make more money. If those conversations can go hand in hand, it's really clear like how their money is tied to like their performance, right? Or the revenue that they're selling, or the amounts of jobs they can complete in any given day, right? Or are they being efficient or not? And I think a lot of folks are just like, well, I'll just match whatever your other one was paying. Or like, I'll pay you $1 more than the next guy. It's like, no, because then they're just going to go find someone else that's willing to pay them more. And then they're going to come back to you. You're going to say $1 more and you get stuck in that trap. So I think that's a really good golden nugget that you shared is, if someone does ask, or even in the hiring process, or it's like, what do you want to make, for this role? What do you expect to do? Well, we've got people making this, making that, and let me show you how do they get there. Is super, super good way to do that. I like that a lot.
I think I underestimated too, like hiring is a skill, getting to able to assess people is a huge skill. And the truth is the first 5 years I maybe hired 5 or 6 people. So you're just not good at something you do 5 times in 5 years. At the end of the day, running a lot more interviews. I had to do that to myself last year as I made it a rule where I'm not going to hire somebody without doing at least 5 interviews before I bring them in, because it's a skill. You got to develop it.
Yeah. And I really like how you get your team involved, because at the end of the day, the team is going to be working with this person, and you really have to place a lot of weight on that, especially if you've got a lot of high performers, because there's nothing worse than like someone BSing their way through the door because they might be just really good at that, right? There's just people like that. And then all of a sudden the rest of your team is just getting demotivated, not happy. And, I really like your tip of just get more people than yourself involved in the process, because you think you might know, but it's still a game of chance, right? If you get someone who's really good at selling themselves.
Yeah. I mean, and the better we get at onboarding,
what does your onboarding process look like? Are you doing ride-alongs? Like, what does that process look like for someone that maybe doesn't have a lot of experience, in the garage door space?
So for us, non-experienced, generally younger guys coming into the industry, we'll do interview, shop tour, second interview, and then bring them on. By that point, we have a good enough idea if they've got a good, good school, good attendance pass, or good references from the previous job or two. We know they won't have a lot of job history, but we know they're going to be pretty good character by that point.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll give them a chance. Existing or experienced techs, we do a little different. We actually pay for a trial. We just say, hey, our policy is we pay you $25 an hour. We do a 3-day training evaluation. We pay you at the end of each day. This lets us really get to know you, what your skill level is. Because if you've been in business, you've met people that know everything, and they're even know more than you do. Yeah. But when it comes time to show you, they somehow just can't put it together, or can't do it, or they don't have the thing.
Sure.
And so what that does is it cuts through the excuses. And at the end of that 3 days, we can say, hey, this is a solid offer where you land on our skill tree. Good news, you learn these 3 or 5 more things, you're at the next pay level. And now this is, gives them a path, to climb the ladder, instead of them trying to convince me that they're worth it and me being disappointed if they're not everything they said they would be.
I really like that method. I haven't heard of it described that way or done that way, but immediately giving them the offer and being like, here are the next, XYZ steps to get you to that next level. It's almost as if, you've had that career conversation where they say like, okay, I know where I can level up and grow in this place. Which I think is often, if you can't sell that to a new employee, like what their career growth might look like, or if it's just unknown, like what is it, an annual review? Is it a, quarterly? Like, how does that process look like? But you hit them straight out of the gate with like, here you are, here's your assessment, boom, this is where you're at. We can get you to XYZ. I think that level of candor probably resonates really well within your team.
Yeah, there's a lot of guidance, and it helps. Like you said, it's like, for years, I was afraid of the conversation of like, all right, how much do you want? Or like, hey, by the way, can I talk to you after work? It's like, I used to dread that. And now it's like, you know what? Here's the list. We systemized it. When you know these skills, we know you have this much value.
Yep.
You want more money? I want more skill. I'll even help you get there. I'll train you. I'll invest our trainer's time. But it's real clear. If you can't do that thing, you need to work on it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's great. What's something, I mean, now that you're like a decade in, what's something where you're like, all right, young Josh, man, if you would have only known this when you started this 10 years ago, what would you tell, Josh minus 10 years and minus, I don't know, 4 kids or maybe minus a couple kids?
Yeah, no, you got it, man. 4 kids. I mean, that's like, I've learned through pain, like I keep bumping my head and trying to like push through the ceiling. And that's, I guess now I'm realizing, we got to invest more time in learning. So a lot of reading, a lot of, resources, podcasts from better leaders. As far as the skills that are most useful, like just know the business. Like for me, garage doors, like just think it through. Like if I own a garage door company, but I want to grow this company, well, if I wanted to do garage doors, then I should just be the best darn artisan technician and just streamline my own way to the most valuable per hour opportunity. But the fact that I want to grow a business means I will only do less and less of my skilled trade as it grows.
Right.
When you think it through, you're kind of like, well, that path obviously requires more management development, finance understanding, a lot of HR, psychology to some level, because now you're dealing with people a lot more than you're dealing with your trade.
That's right. And where did you go? Like you mentioned some like podcasts and some books. Like what are some shout outs? If someone's listening to this, they're like, oh, this is cool. Like I want to listen to, or I want to read, what Josh has got.
Yeah, man. Like the podcast list, top is this guy does Founders podcast, just awesome profiles on the best business leaders. I mean, you'll get big business autobiographies in there. Next one is, Tommy Mello's a great resource. That guy shares everything, and he's just a champ, man. He's done it.
Yep.
Those are 2 favorite. And then Alex Hormozzi is probably a huge influencer for me. The guy really breaks things down to their simplest, constraint. And then it's really simple when you start looking at constraints. What is the limiting factor? How do you open that up?
Yep. He's definitely no BS. I think like just even a golden tip within all this is, you don't only have to listen to industry podcasts or industry books. You can get ideas and inspiration and just influence from all kinds of different things. Even the software, right? Or whatever it is. Alex Hormozzi, used to be like the gym guy, right? And so, and built an amazing business. So that's really cool. So along your path, you built a business, you figured out how to like hire and retain good people. You're growing at a really fast clip. At what part did you find like Housecall Pro, and when did you find the need to really put kind of systems in place and walk me through that process? What was your thinking?
So 3 years ago, we went from paper to, we were definitely getting bottlenecked. We knew paper was like a limiting factor. So we knew paper was the enemy, and I made this terrible decision to switch quickly to a software, which I don't even know if it's around, called SmartServe.
Yeah.
Oh man, like it didn't almost put me out of business, but like it hurt. I lost probably 2 years worth of acceleration off of that because I did all the mistakes. I jumped into it quick. I didn't research it or check the background. I didn't verify the support. I didn't ask other users. So that was the huge mistake I made. And then I got really fortunate. My wife came across some Housecall Pro ads on Facebook and get into it. And she's like, "You are complaining nonstop about your software. You should try this." So we checked it out. We took a little slower pace. Did probably 3 or 4 intro calls.
Yeah.
Talked to. There wasn't a whole lot of people using it that I knew, but I was able to at least connect with another owner using it in the garage door space.
Yeah.
They had things to say. So then we made the transition over.
Awesome. And what was it like, how did you convince the office? Like, hey, sorry guys, I forced you to use this other thing that was not so good. You all probably hate it because it gave me headaches. And now here's a new idea of mine. Here's a new one. Like, how did you manage through that? How did you like sell that vision back to them and get them excited about it? Or is that like a horror story?
Well, it's like I don't know if you've like heard in like psychology, like it's the pain versus pain theory. Like you'll do something until it hurts more not to do it. Well, it was hurting so much with what we were doing. So it was like, everybody's like, yeah, we'll try it. We know this is a problem. The pain was greater than the pain of maintaining it. So we changed. It was hard because it was a lot of learning on the fly. And again, learned a ton from that transition. Like now I know we have to have an in-office champion of this product, basically our own support person, like a key person to develop.
Who kind of knows it inside and out.
Yeah. Or one person you can say, hey, you get all the whole team's questions funneled to you. Essentially, it's our inside, help desk. And they can prioritize like, all right, we don't need to know about this, but we need to know how this works. And then they can prioritize working with the house call team.
Yeah, I think definitely when you get to like a company of your size, having everyone run independent threads, with their own, like that is not efficient. But having someone that can answer like the easy ones because they've seen it before or whatever, or they're new hire, right? And they just have a lot of questions. That's definitely a great use of leverage, and that's definitely something I advise, any company, I don't know, maybe start even around the $1 million mark, just really do that, because as an owner, you can't know all the things either. And you don't want to be the one that's, talking to chat or trying to get support and like troubleshooting those things. And that's probably what you ran into with kind
of. The environment we're in, you can bring on something like a recent college graduate who's going to be more technology familiar than you are, somebody who's actually going to like digging into like, a skilled CRM, and you could pay them like so little. Like you could start them at $20 an hour. Like we're talking like Burger King money.
Yeah. To
learn your software that could help you unlock, thousands of dollars in value per guy per day. So it's looking back, and at a small team, it's hard to justify it. But when you think about $300 or $400 a week for somebody that could answer a lot of your questions or keep your data clean, because those are the things we're running into. The data, like if people don't start using and entering all the job codes correctly, it distorts what we're trying to look at. Like our revenue numbers will look fine, but my interest now is like, all right, if I take a technician to make him more valuable, to pay him more, like I need to have really good insight into what he's doing and how he's performing on every job.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we were talking earlier before we started this call, but as you grow, reporting becomes more and more important. And then not just like the top line. What's my top line gross? It's like, that's not good enough metric to really track. How do you think about, the data cleanliness and making sure things are tagged correctly to kind of get the reporting? And like, what are some of the reports that you're looking at that you think others would get some use out of?
Yeah. The reporting is awesome because you can make your own little file, your own little saved report dash. I've got 3 that I run through. I've got my overall company reports. I've got my department for residential, my department for commercial, and then my sales reports. So I can click on that. I can change the global range to either last month or a year. But like you said, if the data, and more important is your team understanding how important the tagging features are. We do that probably twice a year. We'll print off our tag list and say, hey, we're getting rid of all these useless tags, but these are the ones you got to know and use. Making sure everybody understands the use and the purpose of them. Training has become probably the biggest thing. I look back and kind of like you said earlier, what would you tell 10 years ago self is the difference between like talking to someone, telling them something, and actually training them. I do a lot of conversations, but training is like, all right, I've shown you, now you show me and let me see it again. And now I have to engage and monitor, now somebody's trained versus, hey, Roland, make sure you don't use that thing I told you not to do again, right? Got it? All right.
Yeah, and then just forget, and then all of a sudden there's a million tags, and then you got to go clean them all up again or something.
7:00 at night, you're like, why can't I figure out what he sold?
Yeah, someone's spelling Google with like 4 O's again, and oh my God, there's a bazillion Google lead sources. What just happened to my database? Yeah, well, I think this is super important. As and hopefully there's pros who are listening to this, making sure that not just yourself or not just your office person is just the only one that cares about this stuff. Getting the entire company to buy into that. Great ways and tips I often see too is like tie it to bonus. Tie it to some sort of like payout too. If they have 100% adherence at the end of the month, I don't know, get them something, or like, some sort of, if you do it for a year, you will take your family to Disneyland or who knows what, right? But like some other sort of incentives too. There's a lot of ways to do that. I hear that a lot too when it comes to like technicians clicking on my way, start, finish, because you're trying to track time, you're trying to track hours. And people are like, well, how do you get them to do it? It's like, well, tell them they can't get paid unless they do it, versus like, oh, will you just remember to click that button? Like, they're not going to remember. They're going to get there and be like, oh, sorry, I was in a rush, and I was late to the job and I just didn't click the button. You're like, oh, okay, Joshua. And then all of a sudden everyone's doing it, and it's just a mess to take care of.
Yeah, that's probably one of the favorite things I've learned in the past few years is like what accountability really means. And like as an owner, the huge draw to having my own company is like, hey, nobody's telling me what to do. I can do what I want when I want. And now looking back, it's like, no, that's the absolute, that resistance to accountability was actually another thing that just maybe held me back a year or two of progress, because understanding what accountability is, it's like, it's like learning to use your calendar, your schedule. It's like, it's not limiting you. It's actually allowing you to dominate within that area. And a lot of guys, they resist it because they think it's a limiting factor. And it's like, no, this is how we do more, how we get better.
Yeah. Or especially, as we were talking a little bit about like, sold billable hour rates and those types of things, and just, the amount of hours you spend in the job versus what was sold for that job. Are you completing it in a faster time? If you can get to that data, what would your paycheck look like if you could fit one extra install in a week? What would it look like? And so that's part of, the hiring philosophy too. It's like, look, this is what you want to make. Here's guys that have this kind of efficiency hitting this metrics, and boom, we can get it. So I like that a lot. I know that you were mentioning as part of like your guys' growth, a lot of it, obviously a lot of money is going out for, paid advertising, but focusing more on your own customer, base and building that up. What are you doing there to kind of project into the future to make sure you're able to kind of hit those revenue targets you're looking to do?
Yeah. So like for me, one of the features I'm most excited about now, is the marketing feature you guys have recently added. We have, fortunately at our size, we now have a dedicated digital manager. And that's our goal, is to, the cost for our cost per acquisitions like basically doubled in a year and a half with Google.
Wow.
They went from like $75 to above $150, sometimes as high as 2 months. They're as high as $200 per customer acquisition. Just insane.
Wow.
So the only way to combat that is going to be one, through an increasingly aware brand, which now you got to get into mass media, or more efficiently social media, and then customer engagement, and going directly to our customer source. So again, through social media and our existing database. Those customers, we already have at least one contact or point of reference with them. That's our personal goal, is to increase our database marketing over the next 3 years, while really kind of stalling out our, call it our
paid
outbound or paid in.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And, with a marketing center, making sure you're able to have the opt-ins and things, but be able to text your customer base, send out a mass email to them, and then all have that tracked within audiences inside of Housecall Pro. It's a brand new feature, so there's a lot of runway coming for that. But it's super powerful because most of our pros grow through customer referral and repeat customers. 60-70% of the revenue comes from that. But that's, once you establish that trust with the homeowner, I'm sure there's other stuff. If they had a good experience with you, they'd love to have you come back, because finding someone new is kind of that pain. It's like, then you got to get 3 quotes, and then you got to see who you trust, and then you got to do the research. And it's like, oh no, I know Joshua and his team. Like, yeah, if they offer this, sure, I'll come out and have them do that. And so marketing centers really, we're focused on making it so you can get back to your customers much more easily.
I think that's like the most, it is the most excited I've been for your program in probably the past years, because that feature alone, like I'm a big fan of the funnels, like Russell Brand.
Yep.
Not Russell Brand.
No, Russell Brunson, the ClickFunnels guy.
Russell Brunson. Like the stuff, like the impact they've been able to utilize direct to consumer marketing, and it's like you basically have handed us that tool to do all of these funnels. It's going to be awesome. I'm excited. We've already rolled out a few, and we're getting great traction on them.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be good stuff.
Yeah, if you're not using it, there's different packages available depending on how much marketing you're going to send out. But all of it's going to deliver instant ROI the second you push that send button. You'll pay for a year in your first campaign, or more. You'll pay for multiple years. There's so much value there. What about so once you get kind of that lead? I know you said you're a big fan of like pipeline and just having like a really clean, easy way to track it. How are you using it? Are you using it in the office, in the field, just the office? Do you have a board up in the office? Like, tell me more about pipeline.
Yeah, so pipeline, we've got two people that really own pipeline, and that's sales. Our sales manager, he runs the estimate side of pipeline. And as an owner operator, like, how easy it is to check, get 1, 2, 3 things started. And then it's the end of the day and you head home because it's time for the softball game. And then the next morning you're trying to remember and you're getting the next one out, and it's like being in the treadmill, man. You just can't keep up. You're going to lose customers. And the worst part is you're leaving a bad impression and you've already spent the time for it. It's like the worst of both things. Yeah. So it creates an immense efficiency to be able to look at pipeline and start your day and say, all right, it's today. Before I go chasing the next appointment, before I commit to meeting somebody at noon for lunch and to talk about a job, it's more important that I get these 2 estimates moved from, waiting on info to sent.
Yep.
So it helped me and helped our team immensely by prioritizing. So we've got one person that owns it for estimates. Their job is to move it literally across the board. We've got about 10 panels. Starts from, incoming to scheduled to site visit to customer, conversation to objections, all the way to sold or rejected.
Yep.
One of those is better than anything sitting on the board.
That's
I'd
right.
rather have than a maybe.
Yeah, because then you can stop wasting cycles on it. Especially if they got the job done with someone else or what have you. No reason to throw more labor hours at it. I think the other piece too of pipeline, which is nice, is you can install the automations in between different stages too. So, following up on estimates, I hear so many pros that are like, oh yeah, I've got so many open estimates. Like, it's like, do you turn this on? Because if you turn this on, it'll follow up for you. I promise you it's going to pay for itself a bazillion times over because you're just going to forget, you're just going to forget it.
Automate it. And that's, as like an owner that's like overanalyzes and thinks about stuff all the time. The fear I would always have is like, oh, what if it doesn't do it right? Or what if it sends it to the wrong person? Or like, all the things that could go wrong that are holding you back from it. It's like, all right, address those things. Like, show your team why it matters that they click the notifications box. That's why it matters, is because you don't have confidence in something else because they're not doing their job right. So clarifying with everyone and addressing the real issues. And I would say the other side of it is like, what's the old saying? It's, don't let the perfection be the enemy.
Done.
Of getting it rolled out.
Yeah. No, if you have a bias for action, you're just going to do much quicker cycles than someone that just doesn't act, because they're still thinking about it.
So try it, get it rolling, let the automations do what they're supposed to. And this kind of ties into like what you said too, with our transitions, like coming to Housecall, we spent a lot of effort trying to make it work for us. And that's something going back, I would say, is like, probably should have spent a little more time looking at how does this program work optimally and how do we make our systems follow that thread? Because we just had a lot of time pain trying to figure out a workaround or trying to figure out why we should do a job or when we should time out or when we should pause a job. We really should have stopped and asked and watched more tutorial videos.
Yeah, I think, there are, in any given software, especially Housecall Pro, there's a lot of different ways to do something. And so sometimes the process that you have is a function of what you came from. And sometimes it's easier to start from scratch and be like, oh, okay, there's probably a reason this was set up in a certain way. And there probably is, thousands of other people that are using it a certain way. There must be like a reason to it. And although there will always be different advanced workflows and things you'll definitely want to do because each business is unique in some way, right? But try to, if you've got questions, come to the community, ask other owners that use Housecall Pro because they're using it all day, every day. And if you ask us, we'll be like, well, there's lots of ways to use it. So, definitely come to the community. what do you do when you're interacting in like the SuperPro community or Housecall Pro community? Like, tell me a little bit about that. I'm just curious.
Yeah. I've thrown out ideas of things that I think would be valuable because, you got to have a little bit of a thick skin in there because guys will tell you if you think it's a bad idea or if you're maybe overlooking something. But that's true because there have been times where I'll say, hey, I wish we had this feature. And somebody will be like, no, why don't you address this issue? Maybe that would solve it. And, there's wisdom in the multitude of perspectives. And sometimes you got to just say like, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm not asking the right question. Maybe I'm looking for something that's, I'm looking for something further out than what I really need. I like to engage and ask for the things I want and see people's opinions. And you guys are very responsive. You always, hey, let's get it to a pro vote. Let's hit, the chat bubble's right there. You can click it like 3 or 4 clicks and you can tell them your idea, go through roadmap and submit it. There's a lot of ways to get our ideas out there to you guys. So one of the things I like the most about it.
Yeah, definitely. And, we source so much of what we build from those pro votes. So that's where keep them coming. And the community is a great way to get consensus too. It's like, hey, does anyone else want something like this? And all of a sudden you get a lot of people hyped up about it. And they're like, yeah, I want it. And all of a sudden, you're kind of like, it's like the people that go the door to door to be like, who are you voting for? Who are you voting for? It's like you do that. But on social media, it's like, you just hit so many people, especially if you hit a nerve about something, which is really cool, really powerful. Scary, but powerful for sure. Yeah. Well, this has been super interesting. I'm glad we got 30 minutes even to talk to you. We're running well over. But is there any other words of wisdom or any kind of like pitch or anything you want to say here kind of at the end?
Just reach out for help. That's what I'd say is keep looking. Like if you're feeling stalled out, don't stop trying to find the answers. It is hard. It's definitely hard, but working alone is a lot harder than working with a group of people. Like it's hard to do it all on your own. So you definitely have to develop a team and find people that you want to buy in and be with. And the best way to do that is you got to work with them. That's my input on that. And that even ties into Housecall because as an owner operator in the beginning, I was setting up a lot of stuff, making items. And as the team grew, I'm not involved in those areas anymore, but I found people that actually like making items and making the CESV lists that, feed into them and double checking that they're all, detailed out right. So invest in your team. It'll come through. It's just sometimes it's really hard and you got to work through it.
I love it. Such great tips, so much wisdom, every single word. It's been great having you on, Joshua. I really appreciate it. And for everybody else, we'll catch you on another episode next week. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
The SuperPro Podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.